Hello there, Commonwealth from here. Getting more information, well, at least hints, or if you want to say leaks, about the Zelda Ocarina of Time remake, because it seems like it might take a little bit of time before Nintendo decides to share more than just a sleeping Link, and the mark of the hero showing up on his hand, along with the change of the Master Sword and Hylian Shield. We already talked plenty about that, but here is the big question, because it could change everything if it is true, but not necessarily. It also could be just Nintendo being smart because they want this game to sell. So what is the leak? Coming from Play Asia, and it's saying 60 USD. I'm sorry I haven't been able to bring that up sooner. I've still been sick, as you can sadly hear from my voice. But what we need to make sure is that it's 60 USD for the Japanese version. And games in Japan are cheaper than they are in the West. Plus, it could also very likely be a placeholder, and we have seen Play Asia be wrong in the past. I don't think we're gonna get the price of Ocarina of Time remake from Nintendo for a while at least. July, some are saying it's possible. I don't see it's happening. This is Splatoon Raiders month, and the soonest anything can happen is when you have a month where you don't have a big release. And in that case, that is August, because September obviously has Fire Emblem, but also possibly a general Nintendo Direct. So why are people so stressed about the 60 USD price? Well, the main reason is what happened with Star Fox is the fact that it was 50 USD and it didn't do much changes. But the thing about Star Fox is it's hard to make changes to that game, especially when you're trying to remake it. The best thing they could do was really adding those new cutscenes and upgrading the graphics plus some of the gameplay, and also updating the voice acting. We all need to be aware that Ocarina of Time Remake is Nintendo's big holiday game of 2026. And by being that, it is a title that is going to go up against the giant that is GTA 6. Something that we also were talking about when we're talking about the release date challenge or problem, if you want, for Ocarina of Time Remake, and how it needs to be at least a few weeks away from that game. Obviously, just like GTA 6, Ocarina of Time Remake has enormous expectations, something that Nintendo is well aware of, because the demand has been there for a very long time, and we have seen it through the Unreal Engine remake attempts from Cryzenx, Yianni Papazis, Ron Link, who have wanted to just show what this classic and masterpiece can look like in the modern age. Just doing a Star Fox remake will not be enough, especially what we have seen with remakes from not just Western developers, but Japanese developers. Most likely, sources of inspiration behind the Zelda Ocarina of Time remake are Square Enix and Capcom, mainly with Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, and now Revelation. Obviously, Nintendo's not going to split up Ocarina of Time into multiple parts, though at $60, you never know. But I doubt they would do that. It would definitely cost them, and it's too much risk with GTA 6 right there. We're most likely going to see Ocarina of Time remake in November. So I think Capcom's Resident Evil remakes are a better indication, where yes, you keep the main content there, but also expand and change it. And price-wise, if we look at these remakes, $60 for a Japanese version isn't really all that dramatic. Like, what my expectations were, if they are not going the ridiculous route, is $70. And that's the price you're supposed to have for remakes. The $80 price tag is reserved for brand new, massive games that go way above 50-hour threshold. That's why also Donkey Kong Bonanza wasn't $80, it was $70. We also know that Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave is $80. The reason is very simple. It is the size and length of the game that Nintendo is now doing with the variable pricing. Star Fox, on the other hand, very short game, much like we saw with the Yoshi game. And Ocarina of Time doesn't mean that Nintendo is just doing the bare minimum. It's just that the game length is not going to be on the same level as, say, Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, which Ocarina of Time has never been in the first place. With that in mind, will we not see any major changes then? Will we just see the same faulty problems that this game has been plagued with? Absolutely not. Not from a controller perspective, because that's where the real upgrades are needed when we think about it. Dual analog camera controls is a no-brainer. We saw it already in Majora's Mask 3D in 2015. So the way I see it is that normally the price of a remake of this scale and size would be $70. But $60 could be Nintendo's strategy to, sell more Nintendo Switch 2s. Getting those Zelda fans who have been on the fence because, well, they already played Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. They were not interested in Age of Imprisonment. To buy the system, buy a themed bundle of Ocarina of Time, and since that bundle doesn't include the game, then you have to pay additionally, and $60 is then a good way of saying, hey, you have to pay $500 for this system, so here is our gift to you. You only paying $60. But of course, once again, that is the Japanese version. More likely the Western version is going to be $70. And if that's the case, and it is $70, we are likely to see more changes than one. If anything, we're going to see cut content added in, making the game feel as organic and meaningful as possible, something we'll get back to also in our next video. Apart from the graphical changes and obviously dual analog camera controls, which are likely to be shown the moment we see the game again, is stuff like certain cut areas and expanding the world of Hyrule itself, improving Castle Town so that it's not just a background anymore, adding the streets that we know are there from the map in 1998. That is cut content. That is stuff that would have been there if it wasn't for the limitations at the time. Because we have to remember, Ocarina of Time is a game that was based on limitations. Star Fox 64 wasn't to the same degree because it was an on-rails shooter. You can't compare apples to oranges, so Star Fox to Zelda. And even though the game would be not $80, that doesn't mean that we're not getting a proper remake, one that addresses a bunch of issues, that looks at how to modernize Ocarina of Time and adds new areas that were not explored in the original game. It just means that the crazy stuff of adding 3 dungeons is not gonna happen in that scenario. Ice Cavern becoming a proper ice dungeon or ice temple, which doesn't make sense because you don't have a sage tied to it as well. Or the Wind Temple, which has the same problem. But the Light Temple does make sense, more in line with what we have been promoting in our videos, namely do changes to what is already there instead of adding too much new stuff. Modernize what is already great and look at what isn't that great and make those changes there. I think that this remake is going to be still ambitious, seizing what the legacy is of Ocarina of Time. It's the only game rated 99. It's the highest rated game, and this is going to be the ultimate version of it. So you cannot go there and then not change much, plus cut out stuff that was in the 3DS version in the first place. So Master Quest. Master Quest is in danger with this remake. I know what people have been asking for is just redo the dungeons. I want to experience these dungeons as brand new and keep the overworld the way it is. So a type of a Link Between Worlds experience. And I will say straight out to that, Ocarina of Time Remake is not a brand new game. It is a remake. It is a game that's going to keep what is there. I don't think any dungeon is going to be replaced, or we're going to see Gerudo Fortress or the Ice Cavern turn into dungeons. That's the charm of Ocarina of Time as well, is that you have these mini dungeons in the adult section, 3 in total. And I think those are brilliant as they are. They don't really need to be changed because your target through those are to get to the temples. And that is exactly what I think Ocarina of Time Remake is going to end up being. It's going to be a game that is going to evolve what is already there and add stuff where it makes sense to add it. In Castle Town, maybe inside of Hyrule Castle, in the child section in this remake, because it's clearly the weaker section of the game, especially when it comes to temples. Lore, like, say, tied to the Hyrulean Civil War, which is one of the most important conflicts in the Zelda series. I would perhaps even argue it is the most important one, because it is the one that leads to the rise of Ganondorf in the unified timeline, before the timeline split, the most notorious moment in the Zelda series. Changes to what is there, but maybe not adding a lot of new stuff, especially not when it comes to dungeons, when it comes to brand new settlements and that range. Until Nintendo comes out and announces the full price and shows us more, it's going to be very hard to make a stipulated guess of whether this game is going to be a one-to-one recreation without any changes, which obviously will be met with criticism, as we have seen already with Star Fox Remake. But I think we're going to find a middle ground, something that is not as drastic as Final Fantasy VII Trilogy, but is closer to what we have seen with Resident Evil, and also that way not being as close as Star Fox. Most likely we're gonna see something akin of Link's Awakening DX, where we get one new dungeon, and other than that, it's gonna be mostly graphical and technical improvements. If we get the Light Temple, maybe the only thing extra we get to explore is tied to the child section. Obviously, Light Temple will be in the adult section, and that would be Hyrule Castle Town, far more freedom and exploration, and maybe also inside Hyrule Castle itself, on the way to Zelda's courtyard and that first meeting with Princess Zelda. Plus, we also know, of course, that Ocarina of Time Remake has been rumored and probably has a massive budget. It is the Zelda 40th anniversary game after all, and it's going to be closely tied to the marketing of the Zelda movie, which means that it cannot disappoint. It needs to deliver. It needs to be more than just exactly the same thing that we had in 1998. And yes, 2011. And if we don't get Master Quest, well, then it's less than we got in 2011. So Nintendo is well aware of that, and I think that they're taking this to heart so that this remake is gonna be that best rated Nintendo game of 2026. What do you think about Ocarina of Time Remake and what Play Asia has been posting? Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell. Last but not least, a big thanks to you for watching and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to our heroes, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf and Kintaro. You rock, and please enjoy these awesome videos.